The entire Judge Judy courtroom went completely silent the moment the blonde woman in luxury designer clothing leaned across the table, her face twisted with arrogance and contempt. Her voice carried the kind of entitlement that instantly made everyone in the room uncomfortable. "Listen carefully," she snapped. "You're just a public employee. My tax dollars pay your salary, which means you work for me. At the end of the day, you're basically my servant." The insult landed like an explosion. It wasn't emotional, it wasn't accidental, it was cold, deliberate, and carefully aimed at humiliating America's most feared television judge in front of millions of viewers watching from home. But the woman delivering those words, Rebecca Hamilton Price, had absolutely no idea she had just triggered the worst mistake of her entire life. Judge Judy didn't yell. She didn't slam her gavel. She didn't lose control for even a second. Instead, she gave Rebecca that look, the same terrifying expression that had reduced hardened criminals to silence and shattered the confidence of arrogant defendants for more than 2 decades. It was the look viewers recognized instantly, the calm expression that always appeared right before complete destruction. Because Rebecca didn't realize something critical, Judge Judy already knew exactly who she was, not just the polished suburban version she presented to the world. Not the wealthy real estate agent image she carefully displayed online. Judge Judy had access to something far more devastating than a background check or a list of minor arrests. She had secrets powerful enough to destroy Rebecca's career, reputation, and privileged lifestyle in front of a national audience within minutes. This wasn't going to be another routine argument over unpaid rent or apartment damages. This was about to become one of the most brutal courtroom takedowns in Judge Judy history. A public unraveling so painful that even viewers at home would struggle to watch without cringing. The woman who boldly called Judge Judy her servant was about to learn that she had challenged someone who already knew every lie she had hidden for years. And the most explosive truth of all remained hidden inside the thick manila folder sitting quietly on Judge Judy's desk. At first glance, Rebecca Hamilton Price looked like every wealthy suburban socialite America had seen before. Perfect blonde highlights, luxury handbags, fresh cosmetic work, expensive shoes, an attitude that screamed superiority. But underneath that polished image was something far darker than ordinary arrogance. The real shock wasn't her previous arrests for fraud, shoplifting, or assault. It was the secret life she had been living while pretending to be a respected real estate professional. A secret ugly enough to destroy lives. A secret serious enough to eventually attract federal attention. And the irony was almost unbelievable. Rebecca stood in court insulting Judge Judy by calling her a servant, while she herself had secretly been serving something far more dangerous behind closed doors, something that would leave viewers stunned once the truth finally surfaced. Rebecca believed she had entered a simple civil courtroom dispute involving apartment damage accusations. In reality, she had walked directly into a carefully prepared trap designed by someone who already understood exactly what kind of person she truly was. What followed would eventually become one of the most replayed Judge Judy clips in internet history. Millions of people would later watch the footage in disbelief as Rebecca's confidence collapsed piece by piece on live television. This wasn't ordinary justice. This was public humiliation served with surgical precision. The cameras were rolling, millions were watching, and Judge Judy was preparing to deliver a masterclass in dismantling someone who believed wealth and privilege made them untouchable. But the biggest revelation of all was still waiting inside that folder, hidden until the perfect moment. Before we continue this unbelievable courtroom showdown, make sure to like the video and subscribe because what happens next becomes absolutely insane. Trust me. The secret Judge Judy reveals about this woman is far darker than anyone expected. To understand why this case became legendary, you first need to understand who Rebecca Hamilton Price really was. At 45 years old, Rebecca looked like the definition of upper-class suburban success. She arrived in court carrying a $4,000 Hermes purse, dressed in luxury clothing that cost more than many people earned in a month. Her face carried that familiar expression of someone convinced the world existed to serve her. To casual observers, she appeared successful, polished, and powerful. Her social media accounts painted the perfect fantasy life. Luxury vacations, daughter shopping trips, exclusive charity events, photos beside wealthy friends at upscale parties, a beautiful home in Westchester County, a luxury BMW parked in the driveway. Online, Rebecca looked untouchable. She introduced herself as a successful real estate agent with excellent references, perfect professionalism, and a spotless reputation. But that image was built entirely on manipulation. The case bringing her into Judge Judy's courtroom sounded fairly ordinary at first. Rebecca was being sued by her former landlord, David Chen, for $8,100 worth of damage caused to a luxury Manhattan apartment she rented for 6 months on the Upper East Side. According to Chen, Rebecca completely destroyed the property. Hardwood floors were scratched and damaged, expensive fixtures had been broken. Walls reeked of cigarette smoke despite strict non-smoking rules written clearly into the lease agreement, but Rebecca denied everything with complete confidence. These people are trying to take advantage of a successful woman, she told producers before the case began. They think I'm an easy target because I have money. Then came the line that instantly revealed her mindset. I've never damaged anything in my life. The confidence in her voice wasn't normal confidence. It was the confidence of someone who had spent years escaping consequences through manipulation, money, and social connections. Rebecca had mastered the art of pretending to be the victim while quietly mistreating everyone around her. Former clients described her as rude, controlling, and arrogant. People who worked with her said she constantly talked down to employees and service workers. But because of family connections and wealth, she always managed to avoid serious accountability. She smiled in public while privately creating chaos behind the scenes. And from the second she entered the Judge Judy studio, her entitlement became obvious to everyone around her. She demanded special treatment, complained about the waiting room, asked production assistants for expensive sparkling water because normal water gives me headaches. Even experienced crew members were shocked by how arrogant she behaved, but while Rebecca believed she controlled the narrative, Judge Judy's team had already uncovered disturbing information during their investigation. Rebecca had a long history of rental disputes involving expensive properties. The pattern was always the same: move in, cause destruction, refuse responsibility, claim discrimination or harassment. Manipulate the situation, else consequences. Over and over again, but hidden beneath those civil disputes was something much darker, something that explained why Rebecca treated people with such complete lack of empathy. The folder on Judge Judy's desk didn't just contain evidence about apartment damage, it contained evidence about Rebecca herself. And Rebecca had absolutely no idea her entire life was seconds away from collapsing on national television. The atmosphere inside Judge Judy's courtroom grew heavier with every word Rebecca Hamilton Price spoke. From the very beginning of her testimony, something about her attitude felt rehearsed, artificial, and deeply disrespectful. Judge Judy had spent decades dealing with liars, manipulators, and arrogant personalities, and Rebecca immediately triggered every instinct she had developed throughout her legal career. The moment Judge Judy asked about the apartment damages, Rebecca answered with the kind of fake politeness that barely disguised her superiority. "Your Honor," she began smoothly. "There's clearly been some misunderstanding. I'm a successful professional woman. I would never damage someone's property." Her tone sounded polished on the surface, but underneath it was a clear message. She believed she was above suspicion. Then she shifted her attention toward her landlord, David Chen. "Mr. Chen is obviously trying to exploit someone he assumes has money," she continued, her voice carrying that familiar condescending edge. "People see a successful woman and think she's an easy target." Judge Judy listened carefully without interrupting, but her expression had already changed. She had seen this behavior before countless times. Rebecca wasn't answering questions directly. Instead, she kept trying to redirect attention toward her status, appearance, and supposed success. Every response sounded more like a performance than truth. Whenever Judge Judy asked a simple factual question, Rebecca avoided accountability completely. Instead of discussing evidence, she mentioned her college education. Instead of explaining damage photos, she bragged about living in Westchester County. Instead of taking responsibility, she reminded everyone she drove a luxury BMW. As if expensive possessions somehow proved moral superiority, Judge Judy noticed every detail: the eye rolls, the exaggerated sighs, the smug expressions. The constant interruptions, Rebecca behaved less like a defendant in court and more like someone annoyed she had to waste time around ordinary people. And the deeper the questioning went, the more obvious her dishonesty became. Judge Judy had spent years studying human behavior in courtrooms. She knew how guilty people reacted under pressure. Rebecca's body language screamed deception. Every answer felt rehearsed. Every emotional reaction seemed calculated. And every attempt to avoid responsibility only made Judge Judy more suspicious. Then came the apartment photographs. David Chen presented images showing severe damage throughout the luxury property: scratched hardwood floors, broken fixtures, burn marks, smoke-stained walls. The apartment looked completely destroyed, but instead of responding to the evidence itself, Rebecca immediately attacked the landlord's credibility. "These pictures could have been taken anywhere," she scoffed dismissively. "People like Mr. Chen always blame tenants when they want extra money." That phrase instantly changed the atmosphere inside the courtroom. "People like Mr. Chen." The implication behind those words hung heavily in the air. Judge Judy noticed it immediately, so did everyone else. Rebecca wasn't simply defending herself anymore. She was exposing the ugly arrogance hiding beneath her polished image. As questioning continued, Rebecca's fake professionalism slowly began cracking apart. She interrupted repeatedly, checked her phone during testimony. made irritated facial expressions whenever anyone challenged her statements. At one point, Judge Judy directly confronted her behavior. "Miss Hamilton Price," Judge Judy warned sharply, "put your phone away and pay attention." Rebecca responded with visible irritation. "I'm sorry." "Your Honor," she replied sarcastically, "but unlike some people here, I actually have a business to run and clients depending on me. Some of us work for a living and can't spend entire days sitting in courtrooms." The disrespect stunned the room. Even the bailiff looked shocked. Rebecca genuinely believed she was superior to everyone present, including the judge herself. Judge Judy's voice immediately changed. Regular viewers recognized that dangerous tone instantly. It was the voice she used right before completely dismantling someone. "Miss Hamilton Price," she said slowly, "respect in this courtroom is earned through honesty, accountability, and facts, not through your zip code, your car, or your bank account. Do you understand me?" For a brief second, silence filled the room. Most people would have recognized the warning. Rebecca didn't. Instead, she doubled down. She rolled her eyes, crossed her arms, and continued acting like Judge Judy was wasting her time. What Rebecca failed to realize was that Judge Judy had already begun constructing the trap. Every arrogant statement, every contradiction, every dismissive remark, every lie. Judge Judy was carefully collecting them one by one, and the thick manila folder sitting quietly on the desk seemed to grow heavier with every passing minute. Rebecca believed she controlled the room because she had spent her entire life manipulating situations exactly like this. Charm people, talk down to them, act superior, avoid consequences. That strategy had always worked before, but Judge Judy wasn't impressed by fake confidence. She was studying Rebecca like a prosecutor preparing for demolition. Then came the moment that pushed everything over the edge. Judge Judy asked a direct question regarding Rebecca's rental history and employment records. Instead of giving a clear answer, Rebecca launched into another arrogant speech. "I'm a professional woman with an impeccable reputation," she declared proudly. "I shouldn't have to constantly prove myself to people who clearly don't understand the type of person they're dealing with." The courtroom grew uncomfortable. Her arrogance had become impossible to ignore. Judge Judy slowly leaned back in her chair. Anyone familiar with her courtroom immediately recognized the shift. This was the calm before disaster. The folder remained directly beside her hand, filled with information powerful enough to completely destroy Rebecca's carefully built image forever. But Judge Judy understood timing better than anyone. The most devastating revelations only worked when delivered at exactly the right moment. And Rebecca, blinded by entitlement and ego, genuinely believed she was winning. She thought her confidence intimidated the room. She thought her wealth protected her. She thought Judge Judy would eventually back down. Instead, she was seconds away from the single most humiliating moment of her entire life. Judge Judy finally leaned forward again, her eyes locked directly onto Rebecca. "Miss Hamilton Price," she said coldly, "you seem very confused about where you are." The room fell silent. "This is my courtroom," Judge Judy continued, "and what happens here is decided by evidence and law. Not by arrogance, money, or social status." Her voice carried complete authority, the kind of authority built through decades of exposing manipulative people exactly like Rebecca. But what happened next would become one of the most shocking moments ever captured inside Judge Judy's courtroom. Because instead of backing down, Rebecca Hamilton Price looked directly at Judge Judy and made the worst decision of her life. Judge Judy had reached her limit. After sitting through Rebecca Hamilton Price's endless arrogance, fake superiority, and constant disrespect, she leaned forward with a kind of cold authority that instantly silenced the entire courtroom. "Miss Hamilton Price," she said firmly, "you appear to have forgotten where you are and who you're speaking to. This courtroom operates on evidence and truth, not attitude, entitlement, or money." Her voice was calm, controlled, generously calm, the type of calm that experienced courtroom viewers recognized immediately. It was the same tone Judge Judy used right before completely dismantling someone beyond recovery. Most people would have taken that warning seriously. Rebecca didn't. Instead, she made the single worst mistake of her entire life. With complete arrogance, Rebecca looked directly at Judge Judy and smirked. Then she delivered the line that instantly changed the entire atmosphere inside the courtroom. "Listen carefully," Rebecca snapped. "You're nothing more than a public servant. My taxes pay your salary, which means you work for me. At the end of the day, you're basically my servant, so maybe you should start showing respect to people above you." The room exploded with shocked gasps. The plaintiff's jaw literally dropped. The bailiff instinctively stepped forward, preparing for chaos. Even members of the production crew froze in disbelief. After decades of courtroom television, nobody had ever witnessed someone speak to Judge Judy with that level of open disrespect. Rebecca had crossed a line no one else had dared cross before. And suddenly, the energy inside the courtroom changed completely. Judge Judy didn't react emotionally. She didn't slam her gavel. She didn't raise her voice. Instead, she became perfectly still. That silence felt terrifying. Viewers who knew Judge Judy understood exactly what was happening. The quieter she became, the worse things were about to get. Rebecca's confidence started fading almost immediately. For the first time all day, uncertainty appeared in her expression. Judge Judy slowly removed her glasses and placed them carefully on the desk. Then she stared directly at Rebecca with absolute coldness. "Miss Hamilton Price," she said quietly, "you have just made the biggest mistake of your life." The threat in her voice was unmistakable. And suddenly Rebecca realized she might have gone far beyond ordinary courtroom disrespect. Without another word, Judge Judy slowly reached toward the thick manila folder sitting beside her. Every movement felt deliberate, controlled, calculated. The entire courtroom watched silently as she opened the folder page by page. Rebecca's confidence continued collapsing in real time. Because deep down, she knew something terrible was coming. Judge Judy glanced down at the documents and spoke again. "Since you seem interested in discussing service," she said coldly, "let's talk about the kind of service you've provided to society over the years." Rebecca swallowed hard. "And by service," Judge Judy continued, "I mean the kind that usually results in police reports, fingerprints, and criminal charges." The courtroom fell dead silent, Rebecca's face visibly off-color. Judge Judy began reading directly from the file. "Let's start in 2019, she said calmly. "Shoplifting at Nordstrom. Approximately $1,200 worth of designer merchandise hidden inside your Hermes handbag. You were arrested, processed, fingerprinted, and charged." A stunned murmur moved through the audience. Rebecca immediately tried interrupting. That case was dismissed. Judge Judy shut her down instantly. "Be quiet," she snapped. "I'm speaking." Rebecca froze. Judge Judy flipped another page. 20 public intoxication and assault at a private country club in Greenwich. According to police reports, you became so intoxicated that security had to physically assist you outside the building. During the altercation, you bit a security employee. The audience gasped again. "Yes," Judge Judy added coldly, "you literally bit another human being." Rebecca's breathing became shaky. Her polished image was unraveling faster every second, but Judge Judy wasn't even close to finish. 2021, she continued. Check fraud. 3 separate fraudulent checks totaling over $4,800 written to contractors working on your home renovations. Investigators concluded you knowingly issued checks from insufficient accounts. Each revelation landed like a hammer. The wealthy, successful suburban image Rebecca spent years building was being systematically destroyed on national television. Judge Judy flipped another page with chilling calmness. "And then we arrive at 2022, she continued. "Assault in the 3rd degree. According to witness statements, you physically slapped a 17-year-old restaurant employee because she brought you regular water instead of sparkling water." The courtroom reacted with complete disbelief. "A teenage girl working to pay for college," Judge Judy added sharply. "And you assaulted her because your water wasn't expensive enough." Rebecca was visibly shaking now. Her makeup was beginning to smear. Her breathing became uneven. The confident woman who walked into court acting superior to everyone now looked completely exposed, but Judge Judy had saved the worst revelation for last. She slowly closed the arrest records and stared directly into Rebecca's terrified face. "However, Miss Hamilton Price," she said quietly, "all of those incidents are insignificant compared to what you've been involved in recently." Rebecca froze. The room became completely silent. Judge Judy leaned slightly forward. "The real reason this courtroom interests federal investigators has nothing to do with apartment damage." Rebecca's eyes widened instantly. "It concerns the ongoing investigation that has been following you for months." The courtroom exploded with whispers. Rebecca's expression shifted from embarrassment to genuine fear, because suddenly she understood. Judge Judy knew everything, and her darkest secret was seconds away from being exposed in front of millions of viewers watching across the country. Judge Judy slowly pulled the final document from the manila folder, and the entire courtroom seemed to stop breathing. "Miss Hamilton Price," she said with deadly calmness, "while you've been pretending to be a successful real estate professional, federal investigators believe you've actually been operating something far more disturbing." Rebecca's face completely drained of color. Her hands began trembling uncontrollably, and for the first time since entering the courtroom, she looked genuinely terrified. Judge Judy held up the federal document for everyone to see. "The FBI has been investigating you for the past 8 months, she announced, "for operating a multi-state rental scam specifically targeting elderly victims." The reaction inside the courtroom was immediate. Gasps echoed across the gallery. Even the bailiff looked stunned. Rebecca opened her mouth as if to deny it, but no words came out because she already knew it was true. Judge Judy continued reading from the report with absolute precision. "You would intentionally target elderly homeowners," she explained, "rent their properties using false financial information, gain access to their homes, then systematically destroy property while stealing valuables and personal possessions." The courtroom sat frozen. This wasn't simply a rude woman with entitlement issues anymore. This was something far darker. Judge Judy glanced down at another page. The FBI currently has evidence connecting you to at least 15 elderly victims across 3 separate states. Rebecca's breathing became rapid. Panic spread across her face. The carefully constructed image of wealth and perfection had completely collapsed. Judge Judy continued. Lost over $25,000 worth of jewelry and family heirlooms after renting property to you. Another page turned. Mr. Robert Martinez, age 82, reported the theft of his late wife's wedding ring and multiple irreplaceable family photo albums. The emotional weight of the revelations hit the courtroom hard. Several audience members visibly shook their heads in disbelief. Judge Judy looked directly at Rebecca. You didn't simply damage apartments, Miss Hamilton Price, she said coldly. You stole memories from elderly people who trusted you inside their homes. Rebecca completely broke down, tears streamed down her face. But unlike earlier fake emotional performances, nobody in the room felt sympathy anymore. Because now everyone understood exactly who she really was. Judge Judy delivered the next revelation like a final execution blow. The federal marshals are currently waiting outside this courtroom. The room exploded. Rebecca's eyes widened in horror. This is no longer simply a civil dispute, Judge Judy continued. You are now facing federal investigations involving elder abuse, interstate fraud, theft, and organized criminal activity. Rebecca shook violently in her chair. Judge Judy wasn't finished. Your BMW has already been seized pending investigation, she added, and your Westchester property has been frozen by federal authorities. Rebecca collapsed backward into her chair as though every ounce of strength had left her body. The arrogant woman who entered court acting superior to everyone now looked completely destroyed. Then came the moment viewers would replay online for years. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly and spoke with ice-cold satisfaction. So tell me again, Miss Hamilton Price, she said quietly. Who exactly is serving whom? The line hit like a nuclear explosion. The woman who proudly called Judge Judy her servant was now staring at the possibility of federal prison. The irony was brutal, and everyone in the courtroom felt it. This wasn't merely a courtroom victory anymore. This was the public destruction of someone who spent years manipulating vulnerable elderly victims while hiding behind wealth and fake respectability. Judge Judy finally delivered her official ruling. Not only do I find completely in favor of the plaintiff for the full $8,500 in damages, she announced firmly, but I am formally referring all information in this case to federal investigators for immediate prosecution. Rebecca stared blankly ahead, completely shattered. Judge Judy continued. Miss Hamilton Price, you are banned permanently from this courtroom and from participating in any future television appearances associated with this program. The ruling landed with devastating finality. Rebecca's life was collapsing in real time in front of millions of viewers across the country. Then came Rebecca's final desperate attempt to regain control. This is illegal, she suddenly screamed. You can't ruin someone's life like this. I have rights. But Judge Judy immediately silenced her. Miss Hamilton Price, she replied sharply. You destroyed your own life the moment you chose to prey on vulnerable, elderly people. Then she delivered the line viewers would never forget, and you sealed your fate the moment you called me your servant. The courtroom went silent one final time. Judge Judy turned towards security. Please escort this federal criminal out of my courtroom. Rebecca stood slowly, barely able to walk. Gone was the arrogant confidence. Gone was the superiority. Gone was the entitled attitude. All that remained was panic, humiliation, and complete collapse. As security escorted her from the courtroom, cameras captured every second of the destruction, and everyone watching understood they had just witnessed one of the most devastating takedowns in Judge Judy history. But outside the courtroom, things were about to become even worse for Rebecca Hamilton Price. The destruction of Rebecca Hamilton Price didn't end when she walked out of Judge Judy's courtroom. In many ways, that was only the beginning. Within just a few hours of the episode airing nationwide, Rebecca's entire carefully manufactured life started collapsing faster than anyone could have imagined. Federal agents arrived at her expensive Westchester property before sunset. Neighbors watched in stunned disbelief as FBI vehicles lined the street outside the luxury home Rebecca had once flaunted across social media like a trophy. The same woman who spent years pretending to be superior to everyone around her was now being escorted by federal investigators in front of the entire neighborhood, and the humiliation was only getting started. Her real estate license was immediately suspended pending criminal investigation. Within days, it was permanently revoked. The country club she constantly bragged about terminated her membership without hesitation. Her bank accounts were frozen. Her luxury BMW was seized by federal authorities. The glamorous suburban lifestyle she had spent years building vanished almost overnight. It was as if her entire fake world had been erased in real time, but nothing compared to what happened online. The clip of Rebecca calling Judge Judy her servant exploded across the internet at a speed nobody could control. Millions of people shared the footage within hours. Every major social media platform became flooded with reactions, memes, commentary videos, and clips analyzing the moment her arrogance destroyed her entire life. The phrase Judge Judy's servant trended worldwide for 3 straight days. TikTok creators recreated the scene. YouTube commentators broke down every second of the confrontation. Twitter users turned Rebecca Hamilton Price into the newest symbol of entitled privilege meeting brutal reality. People weren't simply entertained. They were fascinated because viewers had watched someone spend an entire courtroom session acting superior, arrogant, and untouchable, only to collapse completely once the truth surfaced. And what made the story even more satisfying for audiences was the fact that real justice followed immediately afterward. This wasn't just television drama. Real victims were finally getting justice. The federal investigation uncovered evidence tying Rebecca to multiple elderly victims across several states. Authorities eventually recovered over $200,000 worth of stolen property connected to her scams. Dorothy Chen got back many of her stolen family heirlooms. Robert Martinez recovered his late wife's wedding ring and several irreplaceable photo albums. Families who believed they would never see their belongings again finally received closure. Judge Judy hadn't simply embarrassed a criminal on national television. She had helped expose an entire operation that had been victimizing innocent elderly people for years. That was the real victory, and it completely changed how people viewed the case afterward. At first, audiences thought they were watching another entitled Karen Get Humbled in Court. But by the end, they realized they had witnessed the downfall of someone far more dangerous. Rebecca Hamilton Price wasn't simply rude. She was predatory. She used wealth, appearance, and social status as camouflage while targeting vulnerable people behind closed doors. And the moment she called Judge Judy her servant, she unknowingly triggered the collapse of her entire criminal world. 6 months later, Rebecca finally faced sentencing in federal court. The outcome was devastating. She received 8 years in federal prison for interstate fraud, elder abuse, organized theft schemes, and multiple related financial crimes. The irony of her sentence became one of the most talked about details online. The woman who once sneered at Judge Judy and demanded respect now spent her days serving meals inside a federal prison cafeteria. Karma had completed the circle in the most brutal way imaginable. Meanwhile, Judge Judy's reputation soared even higher after the episode aired. Legal analysts praised the way she methodically exposed Rebecca's lies. Viewers called it one of the greatest courtroom takedowns in television history. Even longtime fans admitted they had never seen someone self-destruct so completely on the show before. But for Judge Judy herself, it was simply another example of why truth always matters more than performance, because no amount of designer clothes, fake confidence, expensive handbags, or arrogant attitude can protect someone once reality finally catches up with them. That's what made this case unforgettable. It wasn't really about apartment damages, it wasn't about insults, and it wasn't even about courtroom drama. It was about accountability. Rebecca Hamilton Price spent years believing money and privilege placed her above ordinary people. She believed she could manipulate situations, intimidate victims, and avoid consequences forever. But eventually, every entitled person encounters someone who cannot be bought, manipulated, or impressed. And for Rebecca, that person was Judge Judy. The lesson from this story spread far beyond television. People everywhere saw what happens when arrogance collides headfirst with truth, because in Judge Judy's courtroom, lies eventually crumble, entitlement eventually fails, and fake status means absolutely nothing once real evidence enters the room. The viewers who watched Rebecca's destruction understood something important by the end of the episode. Justice doesn't always arrive quietly. Sometimes justice arrives publicly, brutally, and permanently. And sometimes the people who believe they are untouchable end up falling the hardest. That's exactly what happened to Rebecca Hamilton Price. The woman who entered the courtroom believing everyone worked for her, walked out realizing she had destroyed her own life with her arrogance. And millions of people watched every second of it happen. If you enjoyed this unbelievable courtroom takedown and want to see more moments where entitled people finally face consequences, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for future Judge Judy stories. What did you think about Rebecca calling Judge Judy her servant? And at what moment did you realize her entire world was about to collapse? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know your favorite moment from this unforgettable case, because one thing is absolutely certain. In Judge Judy's courtroom,